So there was a point in my career where I had done like thousands, millions of fillings or, basic bread and butter dentistry. And I was trying so many things to keep my like love for it alive. And then so when I started doing cosmetic dentistry, it kind of reignited my love for dentistry again because I was able to help people with their confidence. It's something that they actually wanted, which was a huge change. And it was something that I was like, oh my God, I could be very good at this if I really focused on it. And so it was a challenge, but really, really exciting for me to do.
You are listening to the Pinnacle podcast, where we empower women in medicine through education, community, and actionable strategies for both the practice and the business of medicine.
Medicine is a lifelong career, and continuing education is crucial for professional development. Pinnacle is the first and only multi-specialty organization dedicated to addressing the challenges that all women in healthcare face.
Welcome to Pinnacle, the elite professional community providing education for women in medicine. At Pinnacle, we challenge you to pave your own path by helping you develop the skills needed to not only stay in medicine, but to excel. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pinnacle Prescription Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Rupa Wong, and I am joined today by Dr. Joyce Kahng. She is a cosmetic dentist who owns her own boutique cosmetic dental practice. She's also a content creator with over 1 million followers across all of her platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. But her favorite job is being a mom for her 3-year-old son, Preston. She's been featured in Allure, Glamour, Vogue, and more. And I'm really excited to dive deep into this conversation with Dr. Kahng, talking about her practice, because it is a solo practice, social media, motherhood, all of it. Thank you so much, Joyce, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Rupa. I'm obsessed with you. Like, I remember when I first met you, I was so excited. So really excited to be here.
I feel the same about you. So I'm excited to talk about this, aspect of private practice. That is our love language between the two of us. And there's so many similarities, as we've discussed in the past, with ophthalmology and dentistry. And I think so many people can learn about how to start and build and create a private practice from dentists, because I always say that you guys are the best business people that I've encountered in all of healthcare. So I think that there's going to be a lot of nuggets and pearls of wisdom in this. So let's just get started. First, what got you interested in dentistry to begin with? Was there a specific moment, or was it more of a gradual pull?
I've always wanted to be a dentist ever since I was like in kindergarten. My mom's a dentist, so I think when your parents do something, there's like a natural pull towards wanting to do that, especially because I really admired my mom. She was a practice owner, and back in the day, it wasn't super common to be a dentist or a practice owner as a woman, so I always really admired her.
Oh, that's amazing. My mom's a physician as well, not my dad. So same, that kind of had that pull for me to enter medicine. I didn't even really consider anything else. But then within dentistry, you're very specific because you are a cosmetic dentist. So what drew you to that field?
I did not I did not want to be a practice owner. I did not want to be a cosmetic dentist.
Yes, let's talk about that.
My mom always told me she could see that I really had an aesthetic eye and I was into beauty and things like that. She's like, you really should be a cosmetic dentist. And I was like, no, Mom, I don't want to do that. It looks really hard. Those patients look difficult. Like, I'm happy here just doing basic bread and butter dentistry. I want to go home and have a really easy life and go to Pilates. That's what I want.
And was your mom a general dentist?
She was.
Okay.
She kind of had all the specialists come in, so it was a multi-specialty practice.
Okay.
And then she ran the business and she did general dentistry.
Okay. So then what brought you from that thought, I'm going into general, into cosmetic?
Oh God. I did a few cosmetic cases. Well, okay, let's go back. I had been practicing a while before I decided to do cosmetic dentistry because cosmetic dentistry, at least in the world of dental, it's still very male dominated. It's not taught necessarily in school. There's a lot of grind if you do want to be a cosmetic dentist, and you have to commit to it because, like, if you start calling yourself a cosmetic dentist, you better be doing cosmetic dentistry. So there was a point in my career where I had done like thousands, millions of fillings or, basic bread and butter dentistry. And I was trying so many things to keep my like love for it alive, but it was just doing the same thing every day. Meanwhile, there's like the business aspect where people don't really like appreciate the good that you're doing necessarily. They don't love coming to the dentist. I totally understand that.
I don't.
But nobody really does. So there's a little bit of struggle when you're a dentist in a career that's supposed to be long when it comes to doing things that are very basic, quote unquote. And then so when I started doing cosmetic dentistry, it kind of reignited my love for dentistry again because I was able to help people with their confidence. It's something that they actually wanted, which was a huge change. And it was something that I was like, oh my God, I could be very good at this if I really focused on it. And so it was a challenge, but really, really exciting for me to do.
So that's interesting. So it was a kind of a gradual transition, but after you had been practicing for a while. So I didn't realize that. I thought it was you do a fellowship or you decide early on and you just open up a cosmetic dentistry practice. Is your path pretty typical for the average cosmetic dentist?
I don't know if it's typical. I think these days the new grads are all like they graduate and they want to be cosmetic dentists because it's very glamorized. But yeah, I don't think it's typical. I don't think I have a very typical path in terms of dentistry.
Well, I love that. And that's probably what makes you so unique. But what drove you to start your own practice? Because you were saying originally that was kind of not what you wanted to do. It's actually not what I wanted to do either. So, but you are in solo practice. At least when I started my practice, I had my husband. So that was scary. You're in some ways, but also better in other ways. So was there some kind of turning point in your story that made you decide, I got to do this on my own?
Yes, I had worked for many people at that. I think when I became a practice owner, I was already like 4 years into practicing. And at first it was so fun because, you just show up to work, you grind, and then you go home and you don't take anything home, any of the work home, any of the hard stuff home. But then the more I evolved as a doctor and the more skills I learned, I realized I couldn't really find positions that would let me grow as a doctor. They just wanted me to do volume and work really fast and kind of just crank out the dentistry. And it became really hard for me to love what I'm doing. And I knew that I could do it better myself if I was in charge. And so basically I couldn't find a job. Well, I found many jobs. It wasn't hard for me to find a job, but I couldn't find a job where I really loved being at the position. And so I was like, okay, I'll just open my own. That is not a good reason to, open your own practice because there's a lot that goes into practice ownership. But I think I just hated working for other people enough to the point where I was like, I'm going to open my own thing. And I was young enough where I was like, I can do it.
Oh, youth.
No.
But all right, but how did you even know? Because like a lot of other practices, I mean, you have to buy equipment, you have to find space. Where did you start? Did you have mentors guiding you? How did you know what to do?
So my mom was a dentist. I think
Right.
like in the back of my mind, I saw my mom do it. I knew I could because she knew how to do it. And she's not very involved in my practice at all. But in those times when I was like starting to look for practice and starting to look at numbers and P&Ls, I had no idea how to look at any of that stuff. And my mom really helped me to break down the numbers and to see whether something was a good practice or like a quote unquote bad practice to buy. Because I didn't start from scratch. I took over an existing practice that was like really, really old.
That's what I did as well. I think it's a great way to enter private practice. Much more challenging, not impossible to start from scratch, but at least there's built-in patient base, there's search, SEO associated with a website, practice name, all of that. And then do you have, what as you're going along this practice journey, how many years have you been in practice now, solo practice?
this is our 10th year at this practice, which is crazy. Like it just flew by, really.
What has been the biggest obstacles you've encountered?
Ooh. So I think in the beginning, it was particularly hard to grow the practice because I didn't know how to market the practice. And I was very stuck in this mindset of if I'm a really, really good dentist, the word will get out and my work will speak for itself and people will come. And I was almost like very against the idea of marketing. That was a hurdle. That's something that I had to get out of my own way when it came to that. But then from a personal front, the hardest thing is staffing and employees. Like I realized very early on that I'm a micromanager and that like I was scaring away a lot of my employees.
I understand that. I was the same in the beginning because it's your baby, right? I started my practice, my husband and I started ours before we had our first child. It was our baby. We care about it. We think about it. We wanted things done a certain way. But it's hard to let go. Otherwise, you have to delegate, or else they're not going to be happy in their jobs, right? They're not going to feel satisfied. And that's a big life lesson because in school and in training, you just do as you're told. So you expect, I hate to say it, you kind of expect others to just do that, but that's not the way real life works. And that was a transition. What marketing did you start doing? You were talking about at first feeling like you shouldn't do any. So then what did you start? We'll talk about social media later, but initially, 10 years ago before social media, what did you start doing? How did you start bringing patients in the door?
I tried everything. And, like honestly, nothing really worked that well for me. Like I tried, I did things like, we call them bagel runs. So if we had little patches in our schedule, then my assistant, actually, this is her idea, and she's very extroverted, which is perfect. But we'd get like bagels and show up at their work and take pictures with them, put them on like our Facebook page. And those patients stayed with us through everything. Like we dropped insurance, they stayed with us. So it really does work. They really appreciate that sort of thing. I did flyers, I did ads, like I did it all, but honestly, nothing really worked that well for me like I had expected it to. It was just like a lot of money down the drain for a lot of marketing. Like for example, Google ads, I spent so much money on that for cosmetic leads in particular. And the problem with that was that when patients would come into the office, they would see me and they'd be like, oh, well, you look like you just graduated from dental school. And I'm like, no, I've been out for really, like when people say that, you're just always like sort of defending yourself and there's just nothing you can say. You're just starting off on the wrong foot. So I tried a lot of things. Nothing really worked that well for me.
Oh, interesting. I know. And a lot of women share stories too about when you look younger than your age. I can say now I don't get that very much anymore, but
I don't actually get that a lot now either. And I like miss it.
It's a little sad. It's a little sad.
Yeah.
But then so you were growing your practice. What made you stick with it if you felt, the marketing wasn't working? But you still had patients, just like the baseline patients of the practice you inherited, and that kind of sustained you until you branched out into different marketing efforts. Is that what happened?
Not really. I actually just, I thought that practices just grow slowly. I didn't really compare myself to other practices. And I was like, maybe I can do something else with my time instead, which again, it wasn't like the best choice, but I started working at the dental school as a professor like half the week. And I hired people to be there in place of me on certain days. And I was only there like 2.5 days. And then other people were there the other 2 days or 3 days or whatever. And then I was teaching at the dental school. So while I was there, it kind of grew slowly. It was sustaining itself, but I had another source of income.
Oh, that definitely helps, I'm sure. What have you, now that you're in it, 10 years, you're successful, the practice is thriving. What have you found have been some of the successes, some of the the high points of being a practice owner?
The high points?
Yeah.
I think so my practice is a 2-chair practice, and it's a small practice when you compare it to most dental practices. Most dental practices are like, they have like at least 4 chairs. My husband's has 15 chairs, and then it's a grind. Like, you're supposed to see volume, you're supposed to be very efficient with the time. With my practice, I think the high point was that I was never too afraid to take risks. Especially like after I became a mom, I was like, we're dropping insurance. When I go to work, like, I'm going to make this count. So I'm not going to do these things at these fees anymore. We're going to like make sure that I can do the quality of work I want, and make sure the time I'm at the practice, I'm being paid, being compensated fairly. And so I just dropped insurance, all of them, like all at once. And I was like, it's fine, we'll rebuild. And then I also, like, when I decide to be a cosmetic dentist, then, you know, when you decide you're like really going to focus in on one thing only, that means that there are certain sacrifices on other things. Like, for example, you're going to refer out some of the other stuff that you would be making money on. So like a lot of things that required the commitment to see through, I was able to do that. And it's because I didn't have a lot of, like, I guess it wasn't a risky thing for me to do, as compared to like if my husband, I think, has a lot more risk on his plate, because there are so many people depending on him in his practice because it's bigger. So having a small practice, I was able to maneuver with the times.
I love that. And I actually think this is a trend, the micro practice trend. I see it in ophthalmology. We both know Pam Mehta, who has I would call it a concierge orthopedic surgery micro practice. And it does make you more maneuverable and able to take risks and keep your overhead low. And I agree, insurance is the bane of our existence, whether medical, dental, or vision insurance. And I think just charging reasonable prices and allowing people then you can give them the care that you want. I think that's such a great practice model that you created for yourself. It's one I toy with, but have never been able to execute, since Opto does follow that large format. So that's interesting. I didn't realize 15 chairs. That's a lot of chairs for a general for dental practice. When you kind of look back at your career, you've been, you know, at the dental school, you've worked as an employee for other dentists, and now as a solo practice owner. Are there some moments where you just have been really proud of what you've done, or just, you know, oh wow, I can't believe I did that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I'm not like the type of person to be really proud of myself all the time. I think I'm proud of like these probably 2 things. I'm even proud that I'm just here doing what I'm doing right now, because I think as I was going through school, even from a young age, I never considered myself really particularly smart. Even like my parents, I don't think really thought I was that smart. They thought I was gonna do something else, I think, not like be in academics or anything like that. But yeah, I just never thought of myself as smart, and to see where I've come, I'm like, dude, I'm pretty smart.
You're pretty smart. You're pretty badass. You have accomplished so much. And I'm sure so many people listening might be on that earlier stages and feel like you did too.
Yeah. I mean, I think school like wears you down so that you think that you're not smart. I think the other thing I'm proud of is that, like, with my practice, I'm able to sort of temper my ambition, which is something that I struggled with in the beginning. I was like, let's kill it at the practice. And then after I became a mom, my son, he has like a lot of therapy appointments and things I have to drive him to. And that was hard because I felt like I had to rearrange my schedule at work, and I was sort of like leaving money on the table. But I'm very proud to be in a position where I can do that, and where I can choose to be there for him. You know, he's growing up, so he's not going to be this little forever. But proud that I'm able to make those decisions and that I'm able to choose him, because in another life, I may not have some of those capabilities or be in that situation to make those choices.
I agree. And I went through something similar probably about 2 years ago, with our kids, and there were a lot of appointments as well. And I just remember texting someone else in the Pinnacle community. It's like, I think I need to take a break from my Thursdays and just operate every other Thursday. And the alternates, I think I need to like be at home and be able to take them and just to talk. My kids are getting older. And practice ownership gives you that flexibility once you get out of the mindset that you're leaving money on the table, because that's a hard one to get out of. And then you feel like, oh, but if I don't see patients, how are you going to make here? But ultimately, we make all of these decisions, and I think we make the ones that are right for us. And I've found similarly too that prioritizing my family, at this stage, I mean, we're a little bit later in our career, so we can do that. I think it was really the right thing for me too. But it can be hard. I think it's hard for those of us that have just been grinding and feel like we need to just keep going up the staircase, right? Like, oh, I got to achieve more and then more and more.
Yeah, with dentistry, like people boast about how much their practices make, and it's almost like it's like your claim to fame is like, I have a million double like $2 million practice or whatever, like, and I'm like, well, I could be at your, but I'm like, but there are more important things sometimes. And it's really hard to be in rooms like that sometimes, because you feel like your ambition almost went to waste. Or I think that's what I struggled with in the beginning. Now I feel a lot better about it, because I'm like, I chose this, and it's important to me. But there was a struggle for me many months before I was able to make those decisions.
I think it probably also played, and you said that this is kind of a male-dominated field, right? So people that were your colleagues, very different family lives, right, than what you had. Do you find, are there more women entering the field? Does that community help in terms of discussing these kinds of decisions?
Yeah, there are more women entering dentistry. Definitely, I think more than half of them are in dental school now. So it's shifting a lot. There aren't that many in practice, like in their own practice, but I have a really good, strong community of female practice owners from Instagram, actually.
I love it. And I agree, because I think social media is a great way to connect as well if there aren't people in your physical community. But okay, so let's talk about social media. We were kind of alluding to it with the marketing. You have over 1 million subscribers on your social media channels. So how has your online presence influenced your practice?
I would not be at the level that I am without what I've built on social media. That's like the only marketing thing that has actually worked for my practice. Yeah, it really skyrocketed the practice.
And so when you started, did you know what kind of content? Do you have tips to kind of give other healthcare professionals that are looking to enhance their visibility, get patients in the door? They don't want to become influencers to get brand deals. They want to bring patients in the door. And that's a very different objective. What tips do you have for them? How did you start? What's the process been like?
I think you were already on Instagram when I had started, but there weren't a lot of dentists at the time when I'd started. I think I started in 2018. So it was like,
oh, that's when I started. Yep.
It was kind of like the wild, wild west. I didn't know what I was doing. It's changed a lot. Like right now I would definitely do reels. I also think it's important to do like a good mixture of, a lot of dentists are trying to do like these funny ones where you get a lot of views. I'm like, well, that's great, but it doesn't really build it doesn't convert followers into patients. So you need to have at least like one where they understand how you speak, they hear your voice. Like I think the voice, the audio is a very strong connector. It's like really intimate, and you have to be able to bring value, but like in a fun way so that people don't get bored.
Yes. Absolutely. And to educate. And have you found, not just bringing the patients in the door, have you found that it helps when you're, when they're sitting in the exam chair in terms of trust or building that authority.
Yes, going back to the Google leads, like the Google leads, they didn't know who I was. The Instagram, more so Instagram than TikTok, actually. The Instagram people, they've already made their decision before they came into the practice. So they have their trust in you. And I think that was the biggest change for me, is that I felt like I could show up as the best doctor that I could be, because I wasn't always having to like defend my credibility. You know what I mean? So that was great. I mean, those are the best patients that I have still.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's just having that trust already, kind of have a baseline, helps with everything you need to do and discuss, because you're not trying to convince them of anything. All right. You did also mention, I know that you are ambitious, though you prioritize your family. You've built this very successful practice. I know that you mentioned you are exploring new avenues. You're kind of searching for the next thing. So what's stirring your curiosity nowadays?
I don't know. Are you one of these people where like you're always looking for the next thing?
Yes, 100%. I usually have about 6 things in my head, and my husband is like, please stop. Please stop. I can't take it.
That's me and Byron too. I'm like, I had this idea that blah, blah, blah. And he's like,
yes,
okay.
100%. And I think someone once told me not every idea has to be executed. Fair enough.
That is fair. I have a lot of ideas. I think I've been able to build a lot in the digital space, and there are a few things I've learned about myself, is that what I want to do next is I want to have more freedom from like being tied to a location, which is one thing I don't like about being a practice owner, is I'm stuck in one location. I like being able to work from home. So part of my business is content creation now. I do it one day a week on Thursdays, so today, and I just like pump out a few videos, and that's a business in itself. I like that I'm able to just do it in my, I'm wearing sweatpants right now and a scrub top, and I could do it at my own pace. I don't have any employees in that business. So there are a few things I've learned about myself going into the future, of like, what are my real strengths and what do I not like if I'm going to choose to do something. But I'm thinking like something more behind, where it's not as front facing, where maybe I can support another brand, or like be an advisor of a brand or something like that. I'm not sure.
I love it.
What are you thinking?
The percolation. Oh, I mean, there's just always things that I'm thinking of avenues for either Pinnacle or the practice, or same, that I have my own arm of content creation where it can go. And I've tried things and it worked for a couple years, and then thought, okay, that's been a little too labor intensive, time intensive. So, I'm just willing to try and take risks. And I think that's the fun part too. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but I did want to ask you, what is your one Pinnacle pearl to share with other women in healthcare?
Ooh. My one Pinnacle pearl, I think it's that if you're a woman in the healthcare field, at least for dentistry, I've found that dentistry, the way that it's always been done traditionally, isn't necessarily built to support women. It's not that easy to be a woman that wants to have a family that like has a practice. So you got to really make it your own. Like, whatever's been done in the past, like, you just have to like kind of cut your mind from it and be like, what do I need to be able to have my family and be profitable and all that? Like, what would I build for myself if I could picture my perfect practice, and go in that direction? Because the way that it's been done traditionally was not the way that it wasn't to support women. It was like, usually they were all men before,
yes,
that didn't
exactly.
really want to do the mom thing and do the business owner thing. Yeah,
I love that.
build your own path is basically.
Build your own path. I love it. We have this thing for Pinnacle, pave your own path, because I like alliteration and the P, and that's exactly what it is. So you're very Pinnacle aligned, Joyce.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you'll find it all over our website. Okay, can you tell us where everybody can find you?
I'm on every platform as Joyce the Dentist.
Yeah, so easy.
That's
so
yep.
easy. And what about physical patients in case they'd like to come see you?
I'm in Costa Mesa, and you can go to omdentalstudio.com.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce, for being here today. I loved chatting with you, and I really hope that listeners will find there's so many pearls that you dropped today. Just that applies in every field, not specifically in dentistry, not even specific to private practice, but just carving your own path, creating, the life that you want to build. So I truly appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Pinnacle Podcast, where we strive to elevate the voices of women in medicine and inspire excellence across the healthcare landscape. Until next time, keep reaching for your pinnacle.